In this video, I want to discuss with you the use of tonic herbs for spiritual enlightenment. To start off, and before we dive into the specific usage of herbs for spiritual enlightenment or spiritual gains, I want to talk to you a bit about the origins and sole purposes of tonic herbalism. Today, the use of tonic herbs is becoming quite global. Thanks to the help of the internet and other good-intentioned companies like Vitagen, the availability of tonic herbs is widely spread, which has many benefits. Now, in my personal experience with tonic herbs and the recommendation of them with my clients, I've seen a couple very obvious benefits of global or sort of worldwide usage of tonic herbs. And perhaps the greatest gains that I see with the use of tonic herbs and its expansion and awareness is that people are starting to live a more natural and holistic lifestyle. So tonic herbs offers to many people an alternative to Western medicine, to the use of harsh medications and drugs and these otherwise unnatural forms of medicine. So for many people, being able to supplement with very potent anti-cancerous medicinal mushrooms instead of relying solely on harsh medications and chemotherapy offers an invaluable experience. However, with the gain of anything often comes a loss. And the major loss that I see with the widespread use of tonic herbs, and the reason why I'm making this video, is the sole purpose or true purpose of tonic herbalism. The major consideration I want to make here is that the original purpose of tonic herbalism, and the reason why it was created by Taoists and Buddhist monks, was for a tool to achieve spiritual enlightenment. So in other words, tonic herbalism was but just a small piece of a large picture in the pursuit of spiritual enlightenment. The greatest tonic herbalists throughout history were not mere plant scientists, but profoundly spiritual people. And the major purpose of tonic herbalism, and the reason that Taoists spent sometimes up to 7 hours a day harvesting and foraging for wild mushrooms and medicinal plants, wasn't just to find a remedy for some health ailment, but rather to learn to understand nature, how it works, and essentially understand their own nature. So actually much of what we know today about herbalism, plants, other botanicals, and much of nature in the human body itself can be attributed to tonic herbalism. And the ultimate goal really of tonic herbalism was the unification of body, mind, and spirit. And as I mentioned earlier, much of this core philosophy and the principles in traditional Chinese medicine have been lost with the wide availability of tonic herbs. And interestingly enough, I personally do see a lot of people who are using tonic herbalism in a very Western fashion. So though they are definitely reaping the benefit of using an organic, natural substance to remedy their issues, they're still nevertheless often using it in a way to just remedy a symptom, rather than utilizing the actual core philosophies and principles of Chinese medicine, and especially disregarding the entire spiritual side of tonic herbalism, which was traditionally the ultimate sort of end goal, to cultivate an incredible amount of Shen or spiritual energy. And that way, through the use of specific formulas and preparations of specific herbs and mushrooms, one gained an incredible amount of self-awareness and spiritual gains. So to summarize, there's much to be contemplated and studied beyond just the medicinal benefits of tonic herbs. This is just one piece of the big picture. Though a very helpful thing to know and to learn, there's so much more to tonic herbalism than we often see here on the internet. Something that most people do not know is that traditional Chinese medicine has been around for over 2,000 years. And traditionally, tonic herbalism was a discipline to be mastered throughout an entire lifetime, learning special formulas to reap the spiritual or theta abilities out of certain plants and funguses in order to gain these actual spiritual or theta qualities themselves. So traditionally, Taoists and herbalists treated these medicines as divine substances. They knew that they carried within them certain abilities beyond just their medicinal properties that could increase their own spirituality. And this is where we get the idea of Shen energy. And what truly made traditional Chinese medicine and tonic herbalism a holistic practice of medicine was that it observed all three aspects of human existence. So the mind and emotion of a person, its physical body, and also the spiritual body, or the essence of the actual person. So this isn't to say that you can't utilize tonic herbs for their adaptogenic qualities, their immunomodulatory qualities, or their other medicinal benefits. It is just to say that traditionally this was a discipline and something that most people spent a lifetime learning far beyond the medicinal benefits of these plants and funguses, and turned it into an entire lifestyle to ultimately understand nature, to live within the laws of nature, so that way they could achieve optimal health and wellness in mind, body, and spirit by understanding the way nature worked, applying these natural laws to their own lives, and thus living in harmony with nature. And this is really what makes traditional Chinese medicine very unique, was that they never just saw optimal health as a physical characteristic or physical outcome. Much of like what we do here in the Western world, we often associate optimal health with a certain aesthetic to the physical body or a certain amount of physical energy, with complete disregard to the mental and emotional and spiritual wellness of that individual. In traditional Chinese medicine, optimal wellness is the total unification and harmony of mind, body, and spirit. So in other words, a truly healthy person is healthy mentally, emotionally, physically, and spiritually. And this is something that requires a great deal of understanding, knowledge, and responsibility far beyond just the pharmacological actions of medicinal plants and mushrooms. So with all this being said, I want to give you a few tips and bits of information that you can use to start cultivating these other aspects of your well-being. Here I want to discuss with you how traditionally Taoists use certain tonic herbs to increase their Shen energy and have greater gains in their spirituality. Tip number 1. If you are someone who is on an evolved spiritual path and you're seeking optimal wellness through spiritual enlightenment, then according to the Taoists, the first thing that you want to focus on doing is cultivating your yin energy. So you want to cultivate yin, jing, qi, and shen before you focus on cultivating any sort of yang energy in your 3 treasures. In order to do that, you want to utilize specific yin herbs first before you move into more yang herbs. And this is the first and most primary place to start. And of course, with most other things, a good tip is to start slow. One of the primary philosophies in traditional Chinese medicine is nothing in excess, and to use everything in moderation, and to ultimately achieve balance. So if you're first starting off with tonic herbalism, the thing to do would be to balance your yin energies, because for most people, this is what we are most deficient in, especially in the modern world where we are usually overly yang and our yin energy is spent. A really great herb now for cultivating some of your yin energy would be Ho Shi Wu. And that's because Ho Shi Wu is a yin jing energy. And typically what is done in tonic herbalism is that the jing energy is cultivated first, and then we cultivate qi, and ultimately we transmute that jing into shen energy. So we are transforming the physical into the spiritual. And that is really the whole alchemy of tonic herbalism. So the first thing you want to do is cultivate your yin jing energy. This will build up your essence. It'll build up your most primordial energy. So that way eventually you can cultivate more qi or daily energy, which will eventually become that shen energy. And really quickly to explain what shen is as I said, shen translates to spirit. It is our spiritual energy or our spiritual essence. And it is shen that possesses our thoughts, emotions, and consciousness. And these are usually the areas that we often associate with spiritual ability. So once we are able to master and control our thoughts or our minds, and we have a great deal of emotional mastery, and we have developed a great deal of awareness of our subconscious mind, and typically the end goal of a high amount of Shen energy would be what we refer to usually as spiritual enlightenment. But more specifically, that would be the ability to master and control our thoughts, emotions, and our own consciousness. And this in Chinese medicine is something that can be cultivated through cultivating an incredible amount of Jing and Qi energy, and eventually an incredible amount of Shen energy. And in traditional Chinese medicine, there were specific tonics known as Shen tonics that could aid you along in this process. So in tonic herbalism, the best herbs for cultivating Shen energy in these spiritual abilities, or to accelerate our spiritual evolution, are going to be Shen tonics. But not just any Shen tonics, specifically wild herbs and mushrooms. And this likely has a lot to do with the life force or the qi that is in wild foods. Now, if you've ever had the experience of foraging your own mushrooms or your own herbs or food, you know what a spiritual experience it can be. And according to Taoists, it is the wild herbs and mushrooms that possess the most amount of qi or Shen energy. So if you're interested in developing your spiritual energy or your Shen energy, then I highly recommend foraging for your own wild Shen tonics. Now, you might be wondering, what are Shen tonics? Well, according to traditional Chinese medicine and tonic herbalism, there are a few herbs and mushrooms that fit the class of Shen tonics. Perhaps the most predominant is reishi mushroom, or Ganoderma. And this is a mushroom that you can actually find in the wild here in America if you're lucky. To learn more specifically about reishi, I'll put a link to a video about reishi here in this video that you can check out. However, there are other Shen tonics that are worth looking into, and if you can find them wild, I highly recommend doing so. Otherwise, definitely at least start off by purchasing a wild extract of either lycium or goji berry, schizandra or perea. And if you're really fortunate of finding red asparagus in the wild, then you've gotten your hands on one of the most highly praised Shen tonics of all. It was traditionally referred to as the flying herb because of its great ability to promote self-awareness and expansion in your overall awareness and spiritual abilities. So as I mentioned earlier, there are two types of Shen tonics, Shen stabilizers and Shen developers. Some of them are both. However, most Shen tonics just have one function or the other. So I recommend when first starting off to use something like reishi, which is both a Shen stabilizer and a Shen developer. If you can, either forge your own reishi or purchase a high quality wild reishi extract, which will be the most potent. A few final words. While Shen rules Qi and Jing, also keep in mind that typically Shen is cultivated through first cultivating your other three treasures. So by cultivating a lot of Jing and Qi. So keep in mind then that these spiritual abilities, so the ability to control our thoughts, emotions, and demonstrate these Shen qualities of open-heartedness, carefreeness, and an overall state of serenity can be greatly depleted if we are not nourishing our other two treasures. So in other words, you need to make sure that you're taking care of your physical body as well. Things like poor diet, not getting enough sleep, overworking, not exercising, and being emotionally stressed can greatly diminish your Jing and Qi energy, which will have negative consequences on your likelihood to develop these more spiritual energies. And I point this out because it's common for people to either be devoted to one side or the other. They're either completely devoted to their spiritual path, so they're constantly seeking knowledge and truth and wisdom, but then they ignore the physical aspects of their human life and they, skip sleep, or they eat the wrong diet, they neglect exercise or other things, and then they forget about the effect that this can have on their spiritual evolution. So keep in mind then again that tonic herbalism and traditional Chinese medicine is a holistic practice of medicine, and you're going to have the greatest spiritual gains if you're cultivating all three treasures. If you want to learn more about Jing, Qi, and Shen, there's videos here on the channel that talks about the different three treasures and what herbs you can take to build up these energies. And then of course, to recap on the Shen tonics here, wild reishi, schizandra, goji, and perea, and if you can, red asparagus root are some of the best Shen tonics that you can get your hands on. And I highly recommend, if there is one herb that you take at all, it'd be a wild reishi extract, which is both a Shen stabilizer and a Shen developer. That'll help you along your pursuit of spiritual enlightenment. So if you've enjoyed this video and you found it helpful, definitely give it a thumbs up, subscribe to our channel, and if you're interested in supplementing with any of the Shen tonics that I've mentioned here, then you can check out our online shop by visiting the link below.